try to domesticate you, but you're an animal.
All right.
Yeah.
Clap it up. We have our mayoral candidates in the house. BKS1radio.com, where your voice matters. And we want to jump in. And we want to get an idea what the vision is that the candidates have for Plainfield. And yes, we're going to introduce our panel to you. We'll actually have them introduce themselves to you. And we'll go from, I guess, my left, and then we'll go down. So we'll start with Mr. Belin, if you grab the mic.
Hi, good evening. I'm D. Scott Belin.
How you doing?
Sandy Spector.
And I'm Adrian Mapp, candidate for mayor of the City of Plainfield.
Mustapha Muhammad, candidate for mayor of the City of Plainfield for Plainfield's New Beginning.
Welcome to BKS1 Radio. We are so excited to have you, and I think we'll jump in with the first question. And let's see, our first person here tonight, I believe Mr. Mapp came in along with the Spector. So Mr. Mapp, I'll go to you first. Guest 6745 says, how will the next mayor deal with the gang problems in Plainfield?
I think it's important that we provide our young people with opportunities, and I will work to make sure that we have employment training opportunities and that we work very closely in partnership with local businesses as well as businesses beyond the borders of Plainfield. Also, we have to find ways to get our family structure in order so that our young people don't believe that the only way out is to join gangs. I think that we have to find a way to give them a lift up and to let them know that they're valued, that there are other avenues for them to go down other than the path that leads to violence, and in the end would cause them to in all likelihood end up in jail. So my plan is to make sure that we provide job training opportunities for our young people, as well as to make sure that we enforce the legislation that our governing body adopted earlier this year that would give them a chance to get in front of employers so that they can become a part of the workforce.
Okay. Ms. Spector?
I agree with everything that Mr. Mapp said. I would just add to that and say that I think that we need more after school and summer programs for our youth. I think we need to keep them engaged. I think besides teaching them a trade if they are not college bound, I think and getting them in front of prospective employers and perhaps getting them apprenticeships, I think we need to keep them engaged during the school year, after school programs perhaps, and definitely keep them engaged during the summer months.
Okay. Mr. Muhammad?
Well, pretty much our platform is strengthening family, and we know that gangs, as we call them, quote unquote, are the effects of what happens when you have a breakdown in family. When you have a breakdown in family, individuals ultimately they join what we call gangs, because they're looking for, number one, what attracts them is communication, security, financial opportunity, patriotism, allegiance. These things are as a result of the institution that's broke down within our community that causes our young people to run to gangs. So our platform is focusing on strengthening family, and improving public policy to fill the void and the gaps where historically our families have been broken down. So if we can repair those things, I think the problem would take care of itself.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Belin to answer, then I have a question for you.
As mayor, we first have to look and accept the fact that there are a subculture called what folks call gangs. We need to recognize that they exist, accept that they exist, and try to understand why they exist. And as mayor, not only would I engage in conversations with these young folks to understand why they're doing what they're doing, but I'd also engage law enforcement to address the issue. Because if it is indeed an issue that is creating a problem to the quality of life to all the citizens of Plainfield, then we need to address it appropriately. I'm not saying that we just go out and try to criminalize all gang activity, because all gang activity is not criminal. Some of it is due to a need for social interaction, a need for a activity that is not being presently addressed by the system as we know it today. But we also need to look at other communities and see how they have addressed the issue, and then hopefully work with our young people to see if we can provide alternatives to gang activity that could be more of productive use of that energy.
Such as?
Such as it could be recreational, it could be academic, it could be social interaction, providing entertainment opportunities, providing something where people can blow off steam. We need to have things to do with our energy. As folks will always tell you, idle hands are the devil's playground.
Well said.
Karen Hall, resident of Plainfield, has a question. She says, what are they going to do in regards to youth? We've been trying to get a stable teen center together for 4 years with no help from the city. And to piggyback off that question she asked, she also said South Plainfield has a PAL. What do we have? And let's go with Mr. Matt.
Right to left.
Oh, right to left. I'm sorry.
Right to left is easier.
Okay,
Mr. Mustapha.
Mr. Mustafa.
Mustafa.
Mustapha.
Forgive us.
Yes. Well, and the question again was about what are we going to do to establish.
Yeah, they've been trying to get a teen center for 4 years, and she also says South Plainfield has a PAL. PAL. What do we have? And why is there no help from the city to establish a teen center?
Well, that's one of the biggest concerns as far as I'm concerned, and
Yes.
we're concerned in the city of Plainfield, and that is our youth. When I grew up in the city of Plainfield, not only did we have a full-fledged active teen center that I was in almost every day, between there and the neighborhood house and Grand Avenue Center, Maxon School, Hubbard School, Y, both of the Y's, and coming from a single parent with 9 other siblings in the house, and we were poor people. My mother didn't have to pay a dime, for us to be active in what was going on in the community. So, I understand thoroughly what she's talking about and what our citizens is feeling in the city of Plainfield insofar as our youth is concerned. We think that is very, very important, and this is why we stress, that we have not addressed or focused on dealing with our youth in education, vocation, or recreation. We think that is very, very important, and as one of the other candidates said, we believe that the idle mind is the devil workshop, and that if we do not engage our youth, if we do not institute these kind of facilities, like for an example, we have a multi-purpose facility in Woodbridge, New Jersey, who has nowhere near the problems or the cultural ramifications like we have in the city of Plainfield. Something like this needs to be built in the city of Plainfield. There is no reason why. It's just that we have not had the vision that has steered us in this direction. Unfortunately, there are those that comes from or in the social fabric in the city of Plainfield that are part of those who are left out, kept out, and put out. All I'm saying is, and I just want to close on this note, is that is very much a concern with our focus and with our platform.
Mr. Mapp?
Plainfield does have a teen center. It is located right off Plainfield Avenue by the Hannah Atkins Park. The problem is it has been shuttered for far too long. But one of the things that I would like to see in Plainfield, and I've talked about it, is an idea called PCure, Plainfield Educational, Cultural, Recreation Resource Center. And we have about a 5+ acre of city-owned property on South 2nd Street. And I have met with the Mayor of Woodbridge, I've met with former Mayor Jim McGreevy to talk precisely about the center that Mustapha just made reference to, and that is the one on Main Street. And so we've had some lengthy discussions about how an idea like that can be given birth to here in the city of Plainfield. That's an idea that I will continue to pursue, but I have that idea, PCure, for that plot of land that is at the corner of South 2nd and Grant Avenues. But we also, it's not just about facilities, but it's about other resources that we provide to our young people. And I think at the end of the day that it comes down to providing wholesome job opportunities to our young folks. And I have an idea called MOET, Mayor's Office of Employment and Training, where within the Mayor's Office, I would provide opportunities for our young people, both at the high school level as well as those that are outside of the Plainfield school system. But we have to find ways to provide training and shadowing opportunities. A high school student should be given the opportunity to shadow members of cabinet so they can get real world life experiences. And so I intend to do that in my administration.
What was the PQ, the acronym again?
Plainfield Educational, Cultural, and Recreational Resource Center.
Before you go back, let's give everybody opportunity to answer, and then we'll. the Moet.
Yeah, did you realize that
She wanna
was
sip.
an alcoholic beverage?
She want to sip.
Like, I'm not being funny. I'm
It's
being dead
expensive
serious.
champagne.
I'm
It's
talking
the
about
best.
the Mayor's Office of
I just-
Employment and Training.
I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure
one
he
minute.
knew.
People would remember it.
It would be her. She want to sip. She trying to pop bottles tonight.
Oh my goodness. We are who we are.
I
Yes,
just
on
wanted to make
radio.
sure he knew. Okay.
Spector.
I think that we have enough venues already built, already up, that can be utilized instead of building something new, particularly at a time when our city is cash strapped. We are. I mean, we're looking to stabilize taxes. We're looking to bring new revenue in. And so I think that it would behoove us to use some of the venues that we already have and to look at them seriously as far as a teen center is concerned. The facility at Hannah Atkins Park could very well be used. The Black United Fund is a fabulous resource. It's a great building, wonderful, wonderful people that are very interested in youth and in the community. I think that it's what we need to do is strengthen our school system. We absolutely need to do job training. We absolutely need to give these young people real life experience. We have already had job fairs year after year after year here in town. So I think what we need to do is take what we already have, not reinvent the wheel, and take it from there and use it from there.
Mr. Belin.
Well, you mentioned the South Plainfield PAL. Plainfield had a PAL. It's a police athletic league. I'm not sure where the funding is right now. And when you think of a teen center, and I know about teen centers and recreation because I came through these sorts of centers and recreational opportunities growing up in Plainfield, and they were the foundation in which I built my career as a track and field athlete, leading to being a world-class athlete from Plainfield. Okay? The problem is funding. I would put into the budget money for recreational activities in Plainfield. It is something that has not been done to the amounts that would make a difference. Presently, we spend money on other things such as studies. We spend money on boondoggles and trips, but we have not been investing in our youth. And I think as mayor, what we need to do is understand that the things that used to work in the past, investing in our future, and that is through our youth, will pay a dividend in the future. Okay, Mr. Mapp mentioned that he would look at a piece of land that is on Grant Avenue and 2nd Street, but I believe that piece of land is slated for a school. At least it was when I was on the committee when we were looking at the Smart School program. So I'm not sure if that idea has changed yet, and it would be better served as a school, which would revitalize that whole Grant Avenue area. Now, if your idea is to build a recreational facility along with that school, I would support that. But from my understanding at this point, that land is slated for a school. And that's to rebuild that whole area, a part of Plainfield. But recreation facilities in Plainfield are not going to go anywhere until you put money in the budget to fund them.
Okay. I have a question, Mr. Mapp, about one of the things you said about the program. It would be for students in Plainfield, and you said those outside of the school system. So would that mean children that are out of the have graduated from high school, but in that college age range, or kids that go to charter schools? How would that? What would that?
It certainly includes the kids who are within our charter school system, because one of the things that people either forget or are not consciously aware of is that charter schools are public schools, and they're funded with public dollars, and so I would include those students in my program as well. But more than that, in addition to having the opportunity to shadow members of my cabinet at least one day each month, I will also be having a Plainfield high school or a high school student from one of our charter schools be the mayor for a day. And that student would be responsible to look at existing legislation, to make changes, or to create new legislation, and will make a presentation to the mayor and governing body with a view towards adopting that legislation that has been created by a student from within our school district.
Okay. I see it. Oh.
I just wanted to ask about the financing
Okay.
because everyone spoke about after school programs and some things to strengthen the families. How would that be financed? Because like Ms. Spector said, the city is strapped for cash, so there would have to be funding coming from somewhere. So I guess we could start over here with you, Mr. Muhammad.
Well, on the contrary, the city is really not strapped for cash.
Oh.
It's not. We've looked at the budget for the last 4 years. Our team has looked at the budget for the last 4 years. And as a matter of fact, the revenues of the city, they outdistance, its expenditures. As a matter of fact, the city has brought in way over $1 million what it has expected. So it's really not strapped for cash. The city just needs a new course of direction insofar as where we would invest or how we would structure our budget. And there is a lot of cash out there. There's a lot of cash out there in a whole lot of different ways. I mean, now the city needs a grant writer, and we can reach into a lot of different pockets of money that's around that can bring more money to the city. As we affect the quality of life in the city, anchor business and rateables would be attracted to the city, that would bring taxes down, which all would also bring revenue. And there's a lot of people that would invest in the city of Plainfield. There's a lot of businesses that would invest in the city of Plainfield. As a matter of fact, they're already lined up to come to the city of Plainfield. It's just a matter of fact of who we think, whose vision is going to be more inclusive with the communities that reach across the city of Plainfield, to expeditiously put into those things that we know that we need in the city of Plainfield. So I don't think those things are rocket science or a very complex problem. None whatsoever. We've been led to believe that they are, because we have been kept out of what is available for us, and we have not been a part of the information, and there has not been transparency, so there's no real accountability.
Okay, Mr. Mapp.
I have to take a friendly disagreement with Mr. Muhammad, who seemed to be implying that the city is floating in cash. Nothing can be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is, we, like so many communities, we have a structural budget deficit situation. And by that I mean, when your reoccurring expenses are greater than your reoccurring revenues, you have a structural deficit. And that's why you have a need to increase property taxes. And so we have to find ways to attract commercial businesses into our community so we could expand our tax base and generate more revenues. But one of the things that I intend to press very hard for is to have a forensic audit of the city's finances. That is meant to identify fraud, waste, and abuse. And by doing that, we can identify some dollars that are now being squandered and those dollars can be redirected to more productive uses. And that's what I intend to do.
How long does it take to do something like that?
It depends. Currently, one of the best kept secrets is that
Shout out.
is that there's a forensic audit of the Plainfield Municipal Utilities Authority in motion right now. It has been going on since April of this year, and it is projected to last through the end of the year into January. And that is to identify precisely what I said: fraud, waste, and abuse. So it depends on how deep a dive you take will determine how long it takes.
All right, since you went there,
We gotta finish.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can ask me
No, pardon me. Continue.
All right. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is to stabilize our economy here in the city. I don't think that there's any way we are ever going to reduce taxes, because the cost of running the city increases every year. So I don't think that you're going to open up your tax bill in 2016 and say, "Oh my gosh, my taxes went down." But I do believe that with proper planning, with bringing enough industry, with bringing enough retail, with bringing enough hospitality into this town, we can stabilize our tax structure and help to take some of the burden off of the back of the individual taxpayer. I agree with Mr. Mapp in that we do need a certified forensic audit. We are hemorrhaging money foolishly. Places where we don't even know, places where we're overspending, places where we're on a champagne budget, or a champagne taste with a beer budget.
Moet.
All of this, Moet, yes.
Moet.
all of this has to be addressed, but it has to be addressed in a educated, systematic way. You can't chink around the edges. You have to do this the way it needs to be done, so that your result justifies the cost of getting this accomplished.
Mr. Belin. And Mr. Belin, lean in a little bit so folks can see you there.
Okay. I want to try to answer your question, because I think we've been going all over the place. You want to understand how we would fund recreational programs. You said, is that what the original question?
Right. So when you talk about the youth and how you can help with the family structures and all that.
Sure. Well, you put the money in you put the money in the budget. It's that simple. Now, 2/3 of the budget really goes to paying salaries, pensions of the necessary staffing of the city. And then there's another 1/3 of the budget, which are line items that are determined by the administration and that they put forth to pay for that upcoming year. Well, you don't spend on some areas and you add money for recreational programs. Now, can I sit and say line by line in this particular meeting how and where we would make that allocation change? No, but that's to be simplistic, and for the listeners is how you would do it. That's how you would fund it. Now, it's interesting that Mr. Mapp is asking for a forensic audit, but we were just told that the city has been entering into a settlement for the Union County Improvement Authority to take money or to accept a settlement of payment against rent that was owed to the city by that building that sits downtown Plainfield. I would be curious as to why we had to make a settlement instead of getting the money that we were owed based on that pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. So what was that number, and why are we being asked once again in the city of Plainfield to take a settlement which infers that we're getting less than what we were owed, and maybe some of that money could have been used for a program to pay for some of our youth services?
Mr. Mapp, do we have an answer to that?
That's a good question.
I think what Mr. Belin doesn't understand, and he hasn't been a part of the conversations that led to this settlement, is that the city through the Union County Improvement Authority had a contractual agreement for the Union County Utilities Authority to be the developing agency of the city. And there was an amount of $450,000, a bill from the Union County Improvement Authority to the City of Plainfield. The City of Plainfield was owed $1.4 million of pilot payments. And so you had a claim from a contractual agency of the city for $450 plus thousands of dollars, which the leadership of the Union County Improvement Authority was holding the city up pretty much for ransom. And as a result of some negotiations, we were finally able to get both parties to come together, and in any settlement, in order for it to be fair, both parties walk away feeling they have left something on the table. And so we made a payment to the UCIA for X. That payment was offset against the $1.4 million that was owed to the City of Plainfield. So it was a fair settlement. The City of Plainfield now has $1.1 million that will go into its budget and help to fund programs. And so if you understand what has led to this settlement and how it is in the city's best interest, because not only will we be getting that $1.1 million, but we will also be having an ongoing stream of revenues of over $400,000 a year that we were not getting for as long as this dispute remained a dispute.
So we had a contractual agreement with the Union County Improvement Authority, and they were not upholding their part of the bargain. And we settled for, your numbers jumped around. First you said 1.6, and you said 1.4.
A little closer to the mic, sir.
I'm sorry, you said 1.6 and you said 1.4, and then there was that $460,000 that we owed them because they were supposed to act as our agent, even though they weren't paying us what they owed us in rent per year. That just doesn't sound right, Mr. Mapp.
Let me try to be as simple as I can. We were owed roughly $1.4 million. Mm-hmm. There was a claim from the UCIA for roughly $450,000 for services that were rendered to the City of Plainfield on a plethora of development projects under the administration of Mayor Sharon Robinson Briggs, when the administration decided to give away some city land for $1 that has led to the construction of the senior center. And there were a number of development projects, and this all predates my coming back onto the council. And I can sit here and tell you that it makes sense. It was in the best interest of the city. If we have a claim from a contractor that the governing body awarded a contractor for $450,000 or thereabout dollars that they said were owed for legal services that they provided to the city, and the city was owed $1.4 million in pilot payments. If we settle for $1.1 million, it means that the claim from Union County Improvement Authority for legal fees was significantly reduced down to roughly $300,000 or thereabout. We could look at the settlement agreement to get the exact numbers. And so this was in the best interest of the city. Makes a lot of financial sense. And so I stand 100% behind what was done.
It doesn't make sense because your numbers don't add up. You're saying 1.4, and then you're saying that we owe them $400,000, and now you're saying 1.1. If you start off with 1.4 and you take $400,000 away from that, you're not going to come up with 1.1. Your numbers don't add up.
That's because you don't understand what a settlement is.
I listen to you. I understand what a settlement is.
No, you don't.
I have 30 years of business experience. Okay?
I have 35.
I have 30 years of business experience. Okay, doing projects, multi-million-dollar projects. Okay, so I understand business. What I don't understand is, first, that your numbers don't add up, and then you're saying that it was because of the Robinson Briggs administration which predated you, but you've been in the city council as long as she's been in office of the mayor.
You're wrong. Check your facts. You're factually incorrect.
How am I factually incorrect if you've been on the council for how many years? She's been mayor 8 years. Oh, she will be 8 years. How many years have you been on the council?
I have been on the council for 7 years before the mayor came onto the council.
So how could it predate you?
Because you don't understand. If you want me to explain, I can.
He was gone for 3 years.
I can explain it to you. I was only a part.
Explain it to the listeners,
Well,
because I understand it doesn't add up.
well, thanks for the opportunity. I think, Mr. Belin, I think you ought to check what settlement means. Settlement means that one party has a claim against another, and whenever there's a settlement, you never get the amount that you're claiming.
I understand
Both
that.
both parties leave something on the table, and that is what makes it a fair settlement. If you understood what settlement means, you wouldn't say the numbers don't add up.
No, I understand what settlement means, but what I understand is that the city of Plainfield is not being given what it deserves. Once again, we're being asked to settle for less than the citizens in the city of Plainfield deserves.
All right, gentlemen,
Okay.
we're going to go to our next mayoral candidate, Ms. Spector.
When
I lost track of the
Please take the
She did.
You should have seen her.
She answered
She
already.
did. She answered.
Which way?
She answered. Now, but let me just ask the other mayor, the other candidates, if you have any input about that conversation, or did you want to add to that before we move on to the next question?
Well, I did want to add, but I wanted to digress a little bit. I just wanted to just give you just a brief note of a comment I made previously that my dear brother Matt responded to. As a result of us putting together a team of professionals from our campaign committee, we went over, like I said, the last 4-year audit reports. And the 2012 audit report, we have a summary that concluded with this, and it's just very brief. As of 12/31/2012, the city reports an annual budget of $72 million. The most interesting development over the budget year was the $1 million unbudgeted increase in the amount of delinquent taxes collected. The city reports total assets of $56 million, total revenues of $110 million, and an operating surplus for fiscal 2012 of $1.9 million. So the city is operating in the black. The books overall seem to be in decent order. So that was the point that I was making. I just wanted to make that.
Okay. All right. So we're
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. This goes along with, this entire argument here goes along with what I've said ever since I started my campaign. And that is that we as citizens are not privy to these decision-making processes. If we want to get a copy of the city budget or the proposed city budget, we can go into the clerk's office and ask for it under the Oprah statute, and then pay $150 or $160 or $170 to get it, because we have to pay $1 to copy each page. It's not going to happen with most of the citizens here. It's just they don't have the money. They do have the interest. They don't have the means. We need to open the doors in City Hall. We need to let our residents know how our city is being governed. What's coming from what corner? What's going someplace else? We don't have that available to us now. Part of what I've said from the very beginning is we need to know what's going on inside City Hall. No more secrecy. All of this closed door negotiations, and then we're told, well, this is what happened, this is what got decided. We don't know how it happened. We don't know how it got decided. We don't know what parts went into the decision. And that's what we have to demand of our next mayor. And that's part of what I have pledged to do.
so.
All right. Whenever y'all.
Well, since Mrs. Spector is speaking, we're gonna let her maybe answer this question first. What are your views on how the PMUA is running? Where they can do better, or what they're doing wrong?
I've said from the beginning, again, that the city is cleaner now since we've adopted the PMUA. But I've also said from the beginning that the PMUA is like a runaway train. It's very, very top heavy. Salaries and perks are completely out of line. Their budget includes trips and stuff and nonsense. It doesn't belong. Its board of commissioners is like a reward for people who have worked on partisan political campaigns. Hi, you worked for so-and-so. You know what I'm going to do to reward you? I'm going to put you on the PMUA Board of Commissioners. It shouldn't work that way. It should be qualified people. It shouldn't be people who did favors for politicians. It should be people who are qualified to help run this particular agency. The other thing about the PMUA is that ever since they were initiated, we were told that a portion of what we pay to the PMUA can be taken off of our taxes when we file our taxes at the end of the year. The way that the billing process is set up, it's impossible to do that. We need to change the billing process. We need to get one tax bill that includes the PMUA taxes, so that at the end of the year, when our residents do their income taxes, this is part of the tax structure of which they can take a piece.
Okay. Mr. Belin?
Well, I'm the PMUA. It needs to be cheaper. Okay,
Yes.
it needs to be cheaper. The notion of folding it into one bill is a great idea if it's possible, but I do not believe it is possible under our present structure of government. Okay, that would have to be something that the state and the federal government would allow. We used to have our bills folded in when the city provided that service, okay, for sewer. Garbage was separate because we had private haulers. But in regards to the PMUA, I would appoint commissioners that had the best interests of the city of Plainfield, and would be professionals who understand how to operate a utility on the board. And I would also meet with the director of the PMUA on a regular basis to see how they could provide services that would be to the benefit of the citizens of Plainfield.
Okay. Mr. Muhammad?
Yes. Well, the PMUA is a problem that the whole city is, I think, on the same page with. I think though it's not as complicated as we would like to make everybody think it is. And I think that we would generally agree, and we all saying the same thing basically in different words, and that is that management is first and foremost. I mean, we need to tighten our belt, and we need to sacrifice, but that's across the board in city government. We have top-heavy administrations, and some of these places we had no-show jobs, and it's management, so we just need to tighten our belt because it's been on the back of the residents in the city of Plainfield. And on the contrary, I don't think that it's impossible to have this bill consolidated. There is a way that I think that can be met, and it can be constructed where that bill can be consolidated, where residents in Plainfield wouldn't be receiving two bills, because that is what's happening. And the other thing along with that is it has been legislated into the taxes, whereas if you miss or don't pay PMUA,
yes,
it's like old days extortion. They lien on your property, they sell it to a realtor, and then the realtor inflates it 3 times over. And this is what's happening to the residents in the city of Plainfield.
Yes.
And they might have leaned on, I think, about 1,200 properties in the last year as a result of that. And I think that's just absurd. That's crazy. So I think we just need a tough administration. There's going to be no nonsense. That's going to tighten the belt, and that's going to have a tight ship, and that's going to fix PMUA for the city at large.
That was kind of my next question. Like, what will you do as the mayor, or you all do, to change that? I've known several people that have lost their homes due to the PMUA. So, I mean, I think we need to be honest and say that, if that's a revenue-making situation for the city, it's not a good one. And that needs to change, immediately.
Mr. Mapp?
Yeah.
I would like an opportunity to answer this question because it's a pet peeve of mine. There has been no one more constructively critical of the PMUA than I have been throughout the course of my campaign. And I am happy to know that my mayoral opponents are endorsing an idea that I have been advocating on for so long. And let me say this. A part of the problem with the PMUA is that it's a bloated bureaucracy with too much cost that is at the top, and we need to cut that cost out of the process so as to reduce the cost to the ratepayers. But in terms of how we can provide relief, that's one of the ways. The other way is what I've been advocating about, that consolidated, that one bill. And it is very simple for that to be accomplished. And all that needs to be done is that there needs to be a contractual agreement between the PMUA and the City of Plainfield, which could all be done by legislation of the governing body signed by the mayor. And what that means, like it's done in so many other municipalities, for example, when I was in Roselle, the Linden Roselle Sewage Authority would send a bill to the City of Plainfield, to the City of Roselle, or the Borough of Roselle, I should say, that was entered into the municipal budget of the borough of Roselle. And so if we did the same thing in Plainfield, which is all that is needed, is legislation by the governing body, a contract between the two parties, and let me give you exactly the impact that would have on you. If you're currently paying $2,000 a year to the PMUA, and you're in the 28% tax bracket, as so many people are, you would actually save $560 annually out of that $2,000 by being able to have that as a deduction on your internal revenue taxes. And that can happen by having just one bill. The customer of the PMUA wouldn't be the 15,000 households in the city, but the customer would be the City of Plainfield, and we would receive one bill from the PMUA. It is possible. It can easily be accomplished. Where there's a will, there's a way. And under my administration, the will is there, and we'll find a way.
Okay. Kurt Flirt.
All right. Since previously I actually jumped kind of prematurely when he started speaking. Mr. Mapp started speaking about the property taxes and that issue. And one of the questions was I had. The property taxes in the city of Plainfield are outrageous. And because of the decline of the real estate market, what new systems can you put in place to make sure that the houses are properly assessed to decrease the property taxes that the current residents are paying?
Is that
for it's actually for all candidates, but
We'll start with
We'll
you.
start off.
And let's see, we're at 12:10, so we want to keep the comments a little short so we can get everybody in and cover a few more things. Mr. Mapp.
In terms of reassessment, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize that under a reassessment is what is known as revenue neutral. The city doesn't get to collect a dime more or a dime less. If you need $50 million to run the city, you have to collect $50 million. What it means under a reassessment is that some people, when their properties are reassessed, will pay more and some will pay less. And so some will be happy and some will be very unhappy. But you still have to collect $50 million in order to run the city. So reassessments are revenue neutral and taxes don't go down, generally speaking. They just get shifted
around. Okay.
And so that's how it works.
yeah, if people who aren't supposed to pay a certain amount, I mean that's the issue though. The people who rightfully should be paying a certain amount are paying the amount that they should be paying. That's the purpose of the reassessment. That still makes sense to me.
That would be the purpose of a reassessment. And under reassessment, we don't know how it will turn out. And so people who think they may benefit may actually
have to pay more.
And it's always a very difficult issue to address. But I don't have a problem, personally speaking, with a reassessment. The last time one was done in Plainfield, I believe, was in 1989. There's some communities that don't do reassessments, period. Newark had to be ordered by the courts to do one after not doing one for about 40 or 50 years. Then there's some other communities, based on the software that they use, that do it annually.
Yeah, they say be careful what you ask for.
I agree.
So
Careful what you wish for.
if you don't reassess, so the tax rate just increases.
Yes. Basically, yes.
Well, and this piggybacks on your question in chat. Someone said, "Is there anything that can be done from the mayor's office to help property values increase because of our property values are down?"
There's a lot of dilapidation around the city. I noticed there's a lot of abandoned buildings and houses. It's just crazy.
And yeah, that's a question I definitely had. This was based on some of the citizens talking to me about some of the senior citizens said they go to Westfield to shop, and they they patronize Westfield a lot.
Yeah.
So I was like, why? It was like Plainfield hasn't really done anything about the beautification of the city, making the city cleaner, look better. Some of the old buildings and everything. Like, what would you do to change that, improve the beautification, and to make people want to shop and patronize Plainfield, and make people from out of town even come into Plainfield?
We'll start from the left to right, Mr. Belin.
I'm sorry.
Well, we just gave him 3 questions.
Yeah, it's dealing with the beautification. And, yeah.
Well, I mean, property values are based a lot on, it's like the stock market. There's a lot of speculation there. If you perceive that you live in a wonderful town, then you will have more value in that particular town, and your houses would be worth more, at least perception-wise. And that means someone will pay more. If you go right across the street or of Terrell Road into Fanwood or Scotch Plains, the houses their property value is higher than it is in the city of Plainfield. It's not just because they have a better school system as they perceive it, but it is because it is perceived as being a better community. Can we do better in beautifying the city? Absolutely. And we should. And we should start with our own city-owned properties. By beautifying those properties that we own, the city, as a mayor, I would say, you get out there and you clean up this city of Plainfield, where there are properties that need to be painted, commercial properties, where there are weeds growing. I've seen them throughout the city. We need to get on those business owners and those landlords to make sure that they beautify the city. By doing those things and turning on some lights in the city of Plainfield at night, you will change the perception of the city being dark, unsafe, unkept, and the perception will change, and believe me, property values will go up. So if you change the perception that Plainfield is ready to do business and do things differently, you can increase property value based on perception.
And we're going to Sandy, but I did want to just mention that after you said that about the lights last time, I started driving around at night. Like, it is very dark here.
It's dark.
I never realized that. Maybe that's
true.
why it looks a little gloomy. Okay, go ahead, Spector.
Well, what we need is clean, safe streets. Yeah, we do need to get the lights turned on. Part of that is the responsibility of DPW, who then calls PSE&G that bulbs have to be replaced, etc., etc. You're supposed to give them the number and off the pole and the location, and then PSE&G is supposed to come out and take care of it. Somewhere the system has fallen through. It's not working. It's not happening. I don't want to put the blame on PSE&G, and I don't want to put the blame on DPW. But somewhere there's a disconnect in the system. Yes, I think that we can make our city the kind of city that attracts people from the outside. But it has to be done with some sort of plan. Right now we don't have a plan. We've got a downtown full of 89 to 99 cent stores. How many tchotchkes can you buy in your life?
And there's a lot of restaurants.
What's a tchotchke?
A tchotchke? Tchotchke is a Yiddish word for a little just piece of...
A doodad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The thingamajig, the thingamabob, that whatchamacallit. Okay.
In other words, how many sets of salt and pepper shakers can you?
I feel you. It's like 4 or 5 in one 2-block radius.
We need to model ourselves after cities that attract people from the outside. That's why our people are going into Westfield. That's why our people are going into Springfield, Scotch Plains, Fanwood, because they have actually started to make a model for themselves, and they keep that model up. When you go into Summit allows a certain number of stores of a certain kind, and that's it. That's their master plan. I'm not saying that that'll work here, but I'm saying that we have got to do something. We've got to do a diversity of restaurants, from fast, easy takeout to higher end restaurants to attract everyone. We need different kinds of retail. Everything from the 89-cent store to the more expensive stores that will, with better clothing and jewelry, that will lure people in. We need to bring out, advertise our cultural events and our cultural diversity. That's how we're going to get people in. And we deserve nothing less.
And on that note, we're going to just pause to take this call. We have a caller from the 908. Caller, state your name and where you're calling from.
Karen Hall.
Welcome, Karen Hall, to BKS1Radio.com.
How you doing, Karen?
Hi.
Did you have a question for our mayoral candidates?
No, I don't have a question. I just have a response.
Okay. Your voice matters. Go ahead, we're waiting.
Are you ready?
We're
Yes,
ready.
we're ready.
I hope we're ready.
Okay. I just tuned in, and
Ms.
I
Hall.
have been listening to the conversation about beautifying Plainfield. Well, actually, it is a question. It's a question and a response. How can you beautify Plainfield when the citizens of Plainfield don't know any better than to keep and want their city to be better? You're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem. There's no place in the city of Plainfield where we can reach our kids and teach our kids that we want better. So how can you possibly beautify a building and then you have MS-13 written on it the next day?
You do have a point.
Good point.
True that.
Hilarious.
You do have a point. Ms. Hall, what would you... What do you,
hold on, I'm hearing myself.
yes, go ahead and turn down your device, whatever you're listening to us on. And I have a question for you.
Sure.
What do you think is the more important piece of that? You know, to get to that outcome, to where we get to the point.
Well, the way that they're speaking is like you can go to Scotch Plains, you can go to Stanwood, you can go to South Plainfield, and people want to shop there. But it's not just because they have clean streets, good stores. It's because the people have more respect and people treat their city better, and they want to have their city better.
I believe that's kind of
You can't go into South Plainfield and do something out of the norm and get away with it, where you can come to Plainfield and do anything you want to do.
Okay, so does that speak to our are you saying in terms of a legal aspect or a zoning
as far
aspect?
as the police?
No, not just legal. It goes so much deeper than that. It goes way deeper than that.
Talking about the psychology.
You have to teach people to want better. You can put a Band-Aid on it and teach and beautify everything. Put paint on the building and make the town more pretty to come and shop in. But it's going to turn around and be the same thing if you don't teach the people and you don't give people inspiration to want to do better.
Well, Ms. Hall, let's get a response from our candidates.
Who wants to take that?
Okay.
Well, let me just take a minute to respond to the question that was asked. I believe there are a number of things that we can certainly do. And under my administration, there will be a zero tolerance for behaviors that should not be embraced by any of our citizens. For example, we have high school students that are walking the street. I was in Kennedy Fried Chicken one day, and I saw two high school students. They were passing outside of Kennedy Fried Chicken. There was a garbage can just within inches of both of them. They were carrying soda bottles, and instead of just tossing those into the trash can, they just toss them on the ground. So we've got to change that behavior. We also have to change a number of things. We have to change the reality. We have in Plainfield, when we're talking about increasing property values, we have in Plainfield, one of the first things a prospective homeowner wants to know, what is your school system like? We have a school system that is 529 out of 558. We have a high school that is at the bottom in Union County. And so we have got to turn that on its head. And we've got to find ways to improve the quality of education that's given to our young people so that people would want to move into our city and use the educational system. And until we do that, I think that's the main thing we have to do, transform the educational landscape in the city of Plainfield. I also intend to create a volunteer corps, a group of people who will volunteer on every level, whether we're talking about beautification, whether we're talking about technology and people who can build websites and so on and so forth. That's going to be a part of a MAP administration, and we're going to change this. It can be done.
Yeah, but you're saying that you're going to get a whole slew of volunteers. People aren't looking to volunteer. People are looking to work. They need to make money. The kids in Plainfield are angry. That's why they do the things that they do. They're angry. Their parents don't have jobs. They don't have jobs. So they lash out and they do things where in other cities or other counties, it doesn't happen. Not the same way in Newark. The kids in Newark, the youth, when I say youth, I mean 24 and under, because that's youth. They're mad. The kids in Plainfield are mad. That's why they do the things that they do. Do you think that picking up soda bottles is going to fix the problem? It's not. These kids have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go at nighttime. They have nowhere to go after school. They have no leads to anything.
It's about proper parenting as well. That's at the heart of the issue, proper parenting.
Well, I think it's a little bit, it's proper parenting. I do agree with you, Mr. Mapp, and I know I grew up in a home where my parents were very strong disciplinarians. And the young lady on the call.
As I did.
Let me finish. The young lady on the call, I agree with what you're saying as far as changing the attitudes, but we have to lead by example. It is not going to happen overnight, okay? But yes, saying to a child, do not litter, do not jaywalk, do not exhibit behavior that is unacceptable to the quality of life to the whole will change behavior, and that is where we need to start in Plainfield. And I agree with Mr. Mapp that we need to start policing, and when I say policing, I mean from the parents to law enforcement to the churches to the schools.
Wait a minute,
miss.
And you have to teach the kids before you can police them.
Miss, let me finish.
Karen, let him respond.
Okay, let me finish.
This is just what the 8 layers needed.
Hey guys,
What I'm saying is it is a combination of all of these things. It is a village approach that we must show our young people that we as adults are going to live by the same example that we're asking of them. And we need to tell them that we understand that you don't have things to do, and we've addressed the issue of recreation and activities for our youth earlier in this session, and we will continue to do that. And I believe every candidate here on this panel have stated that we will try to do more for our youth. So I understand your frustration, and many of us share that frustration, but we cannot and we will not just surrender our city because other cities are doing things differently. I think Plainfield has to step up and show that we are the leader in this area and that we are capable of having a quality of life in a city that is on equal, if not better, than those towns surrounding us.
Absolutely.
Why can't we have a team of leaders?
But can I say something now?
Yes.
Both of you guys are talking about policing. That's all well and good. But if you've got to start from scratch, you've got to start from the roots.
Agreed.
It's not just about policing.
Agreed.
Or locking these kids up or not doing anything in order to, you've got to change the whole mentality. You have to change the whole mindset.
Miss,
of
we've
these
been
kids
agreeing.
and
Miss,
their
we're
parents.
agreeing with you.
These kids, hold on. These kids go to school mad because they don't have clean uniforms because their mother or father was out getting high at nighttime. They're mad when they go to school because they don't have the sneakers that the next kid has because their mother or father or their single mother can't get a job, or they have a job paying $7 an hour. So the whole body of people are just mad. This isn't Scotch Plains, Stanwood, or Westfield, where you can swipe your credit card and you can say, here, baby, here's a new pair of shoes. That's not how it works. So what happens is they can't get it, so they go rob the next guy in order to get just the needs of them having something to go to school with. Then at nighttime, they're hungry. So they're mad. Their mother or father can't provide them. Their mother and father probably aren't even home to cook.
Okay.
So they're mad. So
All
they
right.
go rob somebody to eat dinner. Or some of these kids have to take care of their little brothers and sisters because their mother and father are at work. They can't put enough
Right.
food on the table.
Karen Hall, point well taken. Point well taken. Our town is different, and it has different issues, and a lot of it goes
Very
back
many.
to the economic portion of it. So we talked about recreation
Absolutely.
because our kids need things to do. Now let's take it to the economic. Karen Hall, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your view as a resident. We appreciate
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
A very valid
Now,
point.
she was talking about the economic portion. Let's spend some time on that, because I'll tell you, even as I drove today, I'm looking at places where businesses have been for years.
Yeah.
You know, just on South Avenue, we I can't think of the name of it, but we had a car lot. We had another automotive place, a couple of automotive places that, you know, they sold you know, things for vehicles and so forth and repairs. Empty, and you're talking about large pieces of land, companies that have been in the town for years. Foles is gone. We have a lot of empty commercial real estate. How are we going to turn the economic portion of this around? How are we going to get new business in here, which in turn will employ people? So parents will be able to swipe the card and buy some sneakers, maybe bring some outside folks in that the police may have to give tickets to now. Hey, what happens when you drive through South Plainfield?
I'll pay for them lights.
Or any of those other towns for that matter, you're going to get a
Right.
ticket.
Yeah.
And one thing I was going to say too is that North Plainfield has a large, not extremely large, but they have their fair share of low income citizens. They do a lot of Section 8 housing and so on and so forth. But there still seems to be a little something that takes place. And maybe it is the policing. I don't know.
Well, that's why I want to take it back to that economic portion. So let's give them an opportunity to speak to that, the economic portion.
Who are we gonna start with?
Mr. Muhammad didn't speak last time. Let's start there.
Well, I'd like to add off of the last note that we was on with the young lady and tying into what we're talking about right now. This is why our platform focuses on family, morality, and public policy. These things are all tied together. I think I spoke the last time while I was here when I said the dynamic principle of existence is survival. We need a whole new educational paradigm and a whole new political paradigm that is not only in theory but in application going to exercise itself in a whole new different manner and a whole new different way. This needs to be inclusive, not exclusive. If it's inclusive with a community the size of Plainfield, 50,000 people, this is not big. This is not real big. We don't have the problems like Chicago, New York, LA. We don't have those problems. This is not out of reach. But if we become one family, our biggest problem is we have been putting our own foot in our way. We have not been having mutual respect. We have not had lawful deliberative dialogue with one another. We have not been able to work together. We have very gifted and talented people. We have all the resources that we need here. But we're stumbling over each other because we think we know everything. We don't know everything. This is a team sport. This is not an individual thing. This is not about me, my, or I. This is not about special partisan party politics. This is about the residents in the city of Plainfield. Our public policy, our reach, our purpose, everything from our youth to our seniors and all in between. With the unemployment of our men, in particular the African American men, being 60% unemployed. All these things need to be encompassed in our vision, and the charity needs to begin at home.
How are we going to get these buildings fulfilled when we have all this empty commercial real estate?
Well, one thing, like I said earlier, Plainfield's already slated. The developers are lined up to come to the city of Plainfield. Because we have not been able to work with each other, we have a gentleman here that's wearing 4 hats in the city of Plainfield. The developers are lined up. Barack Obama put a lot of money in green industry, for an example. There's one example there. We do not have no ratables. We do not have anchor business. They're lined up to come to here. However, the quality of life needs to change. We can expeditiously change the quality of life. And Mr. Mapp, I have to agree with him upon this about the attractiveness, the perception of our city is because our public education is in the gutter. We need to fix that. And the mayor's office, along with the administration and the city, needs a partnership with the Board of Education, with education in this city to fix that. That needs to be fixed. And the whole perception, the attractability of this city, people will come, they will run to Plainfield so quick, it'll be like Atlanta between 85 and 1995, where 500,000 people ran to Atlanta. It would be the same thing, but much smaller.
Okay. Mr. Belin, you talk about the economic portion.
Well, I think that we need to look at our master plan, which states the direction that the city is going to go based on a 5-year study. And we need to develop businesses through an Office of Economic Development that would provide, in my administration, would provide business plans to investors who wish to come and do business in Plainfield. If we first change the perception of the city, show that Plainfield is ready to do business, and one of the first ways we can do that is show that Plainfield is ready and willing to do it differently. Instead of just electing the same type of politicians that we have been over the years based upon party politics, that we're interested in electing a mayor who has business experience, who has an understanding of a larger picture, okay? And I am that candidate, so that we can say to outside developers, when you come here into Plainfield, we're going to make it easy for you to do business. I will walk you through the process, at least my economic development office will. We will show you business plans that would show a high success rate in different buildings, and we call them brownfields in Plainfield, a lot of these warehouses. I mentioned to you that we could have venues along the lines of supper clubs, and it doesn't have to necessarily have a liquor license, but it could be a supper club where our young people may have a spoken word venue or a arts and cultural venue, and those types of things are going to attract that demographic that is willing to have that disposable income and spend on entertainment. Folks in different demographics spend their money in different ways. People along my age group and the rest of the panel here, we're more conservative. The younger folks who are in between the 25 and 35 demographic, you spend your money on entertainment because I had a really stressful day. I want to get out and interact. I want to get out and meet people. So we need to look at these businesses or these empty buildings and what type of business will fit in there that is going to attract the young folks who are going to take advantage of this transit-oriented development type model that is being put forth. And that is a major plan. And Mr. Muhammad is correct. Those plans are being laid out already. They're waiting for certain things to happen in Plainfield before they execute. And one of them is a new administration, and they're ready to see if that administration is going to be one that is conducive to doing business with. Presently and in the past, it has been very difficult.
Mr. Mapp, then we'll go to Ms. Spector.
I do believe that economic development is the vehicle that will transport this city from where it is to where it needs to be. And there are a number of things that we have to do. Under my administration, I will have a deputy city administrator who will have a specific focus on economic development. We don't have that right now. I will also have a marketing and promotional campaign that will market and promote this city like it has never been promoted before. And prospective developers will know that the city is open for business. I will have an economic development review committee that will work very closely with prospective developers, that will make them feel as though it is easy to do business in the city. That is not the feeling currently. And when you have an economic development review committee, which in some places is known as a technical review committee, this is an opportunity for developers to come before a group of people who have the technical expertise that will help them to answer questions that are normally posed at the planning board and zoning board level, and the process would be made so much smoother. But also within our buildings and inspections department, oftentimes we have business men who say it is just too difficult to do business in Plainfield. So we've got to change that and make it more developer friendly. So there are a number of things that we can do. The transit
Why was it difficult?
village,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
the
off.
transit village designation is one that we must continue to pursue. It is difficult because we have people who don't have the leaders in place, and the leaders are not in City Hall currently to provide the direction to the staff, and that is why our buildings department, our inspection department needs to be transformed. It needs to be overhauled because it is not working for the city of Plainfield right now.
I want to have Ms. Spector respond to that question, and then I have another question from the chat for you guys.
We first have to get our own house in order. Before we invite anybody else into it, we have to get our own house in order. And I agree with all these three gentlemen. We need to make our city more business friendly. We need to make our city responsive to the people who are coming in, who want to do business with our city, who want to come into our city to develop the city. We have lots of venues that are empty that need to be utilized. We don't have to rebuild. We just simply have to use what we've got. We have to let people know that when they come to Plainfield, they are welcomed. They're not tolerated, they're welcomed. We want you to establish your business here with us. But first, before we do that, we talked about clean, safe streets. We talked about a master plan. We have to have things ready. We have to have things in order to make this work. Because if we don't, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in any organized way. And if it doesn't happen in an organized way, it's not going to happen. We had an economic development leader. She was also head of DPW. So very little got done in DPW, and next to nothing got done on economic development, because it was just two jobs that didn't belong together. So I agree with Mr. Mapp, I agree with Mr. Belin and Mr. Mohammed that we need someone whose focus is economic development. We need to get our own house in order, and then we need to let people know we want them, we respect them, and we're open for business.
Now, guest 6745 asks, how will the future mayor work to end nepotism and favoritism among politics in Plainfield?
Who you want to
Start with Ms. Spector.
You just don't allow it. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. You want to give your brother a job? Okay. Is your brother qualified? Has your brother been vetted? Can your brother do the job? Your brother doesn't get the job just because he's your brother. You know, your cousin doesn't get the job just because he or she is your cousin. It's easy. You just don't let it happen. You do what the mayor is supposed to do, which is keep your house in order, which is be in touch with all of the city's various parts, with all of the city's various departments and agencies, to make sure that that doesn't happen. No one's allowed to have free reign. You don't let the fox in the hen house.
Okay. Mr. Belin?
Well, since Plainfield is a small town, you're going to have folks who are related that are going to have certain jobs in the city. But I agree, you have to have the best and the brightest. And that, in my administration, since it's a nonpartisan administration, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or a Libertarian, or an independent thinker. If you are the best qualified person for the job, that is what the city of Plainfield requires, and we need to move forward. So you vet the people, you understand that if that person is qualified, it's really difficult to deny them a job. But you can't be giving a relative a directorship type job because there's going to be the perception that there's an impropriety there. Okay? And when you have that perception, that alone is enough to cause an issue within that person being able to do an effective job. And in Plainfield, one of the biggest challenges that we have as a city is the perception that we have not only within the citizens of Plainfield, but to the folks on the outside. So until we can change the perception, that we are doing the right thing in Plainfield and doing things differently, we will have challenges ahead of us.
What do you do with the current relatives that are in office and in the parts of the government? I mean, that are in there.
Well, if someone has a job, they have a job. You can't just go and say arbitrarily that I'm going to remove you from your job unless it is an appointment that is at the pleasure of the mayor, and those are certain cabinet level positions. Okay, when you have a new administration, you're going to see a certain turnover. But when I come into office, I am going to, and I've built project teams, international project teams of diverse individuals. I'm going to take the best and the brightest and the most qualified persons who have the greatest versatility of skills so that I can put together an administration that can meet any challenge that the city of Plainfield may see in the foreseeable future.
Mr. Mapp?
There are 3 governmental entities in the city, the PMUA, the Board of Education, and the City of Plainfield. I don't have any relatives who work in any of them. And my barometer that will be used for measuring or assessing whether or not someone should be employed with the city is, are you qualified? I want the best and the brightest. I want talent so that we could be in a better place, a more effective and efficient city. And so qualifications, that's going to be the basis upon which I hire individuals.
I like myself. I like Mr. Mapp. Don't have any relatives that are employed by the city of Plainfield, but I'm in agreement very much that the jobs in the city of Plainfield, administration in the city of Plainfield. As a matter of fact, we've already our campaign has already begun to develop a short list of candidates that are qualified, but not only qualified professionals, but are dedicated to the city of Plainfield, that share our vision that is inclusive in the city of Plainfield, that share our initiatives and our goals and our policies for the citizens and the residents of the city of Plainfield, that is inclusive, and I mean in totality. And that is not what we have had. We have had qualified people. We've had people with the credentials, but they have not been dedicated to the city of Plainfield. They've been dedicated to something else. And as a result of that, the Plainfield at large has lost. And so we intend to correct that on every level possible. Thank you.
All right.
We have a question on Facebook. Andre Kelly asks, you have many people returning home from jail and prison. What would you put in place to help them with becoming model citizens?
Transition.
And getting employment.
That's the issue here.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yes, we'll just start here and work our way down.
Well, what we put in place is there's certain services that are in place that can help individuals that are making the transition home. However, there's also movements that are there that would help individuals expunge some of these blemishes on their record. And that is one of the biggest challenges that folks that are coming back into society have found, that when they have to go and apply for a job and they check that box on that box that said I have a criminal past, that they have found themselves shut out on opportunities. Well, for some of those folks, they qualify to have their records expunged. And that is the first start in trying to help them re-enter society, because many times the problems that they had were not serious enough that they should be prevented from taking a place in society. Now, there are folks who may say that they don't deserve a second chance. I disagree. Everyone deserves a second chance. But how can we help people understand that if you've made a mistake in the past, there are certain things you have to do to redeem yourself? And one of the starts is to try to get certain blemishes expunged from your record, job training, and becoming a contributing member of our society so that you can continue to live a life that is fruitful and productive to all.
Ms. Spector.
Well, I think that that Mr. Belin just hit it on the head, and this is the same thing that we said about our students. It's job training. We need to have a way to transition them, to bring them back into the workforce in a useful fashion, in a fashion in which they can be proud and productive and have a future. Not just slinging burgers, but actually have a future. And again, just like we talked about our youth, this is a matter of job training. I think this is a matter of perhaps even looking at halfway houses, of which Plainfield has many, to bring these people back into society in a way where they can contribute, feel welcome, feel appreciated, and feel important.
Okay, Mr. Mapp.
It's always good when you're validated by your peers. And so what you just heard from Mr. Belin is a tape that he played from my answer at the League of Women Voters Forum last Wednesday evening. That is exactly what I said. And so you know, we, on the governing body, we put legislation in place earlier this year that would prevent the city from requiring individuals who ran afoul of the law from having to check that box. Have you ever committed a crime? Have you ever been incarcerated? That will not be a requirement based on the legislation that we enacted earlier this year. Because many of these individuals who have made mistakes, and a lot of us do make mistakes, and we have those people in our families, regardless of whether we want to admit it or not. They're in all of our families, and they deserve a second chance. And so there are individuals who, if they are allowed to get before a manager of Department XYZ, that person might be able to convince that manager why he or she is the best person for that job based on what he brings to the table. But if we allow that box to be checked, that person will never get in front of that prospective employer.
Mr. Muhammad?
I'm pretty much in agreement with the things that's been said here, but I think we can also accelerate some of the things that we can do with that kind of population that's returning to our city. And the way we can accelerate it is through local government. We have the ability to be able to slate within our city structure that a certain percentage of the jobs that are facilitated through and by way of contracts with the city goes to the residents in the city. The partnership and network that would reach across individuals that are coming from incarceration, whether they're on parole, whether they're going to use One Stop, whether they're going to use vocational training, partnership from City Hall, local city government, interweave with that can assure through local policy that they will, despite their record, will be able to receive these kind of jobs, especially if they're building jobs. Building jobs, you know, they don't necessarily need to go to a school and waste more time, because when a man comes home and he needs to feed himself and maybe a family, he can't go to school. These jobs are not difficult. You can learn on the job training. I worked in construction for many years. It's not rocket science. You know, you can pour concrete, you can lay bricks, you can build scaffolds. I mean, almost like that. And you can learn starting at $18 an hour. So in the direction and the course where we're going, where we're going to build, because we're going to build in this city. We're going to build in the city. We're going to attract business. We're going to refurbish things. We're going to bring in green industry, the whole 9 yards. Well, that should be slated for our residents first. No sense in them have to suffer recidivism because they don't have the resources or the alternatives that can facilitate their lives and their families.
Well, let me just say on behalf of BKS1Radio.com, we know that the hour is late, and we appreciate that you have come and have shared with us what your vision is for Plainfield. We're going to wrap up, and I'm going to ask you to take 2 minutes apiece and just tell the people of Plainfield why you're the candidate, why you're the person for the job.
When I hold up my 2 fingers, that means your 2 minutes is up.
And make this 2 minutes good, because it depends on whether you get a piece of candy.
I had something I wanted to add to that question, but it's all right.
That's okay.
That's all right.
So we're going to start. Let's start with Mr. Muhammad, and we'll work our way down.
Well, I believe, and beyond belief, and I'm saying this very humbly and respectfully and without vanity, that I am the candidate for mayor for the city of Plainfield for Plainfield's new beginning. I believe that because I bring to the table the things that are needed within this particular hour. I think we're at the crossroads in our city, especially with those who have, been here all their lives. We're not investing in our people for the most part. As a youngster, I grew up and I played on, Papa Warner teams. I played football and basketball. And there was many times that, status quo always wanted somebody to play quarterback or bring the ball down, and they just wasn't the person to do it. And as a result of it, we never won until the right person got in the right place. And I'm just saying, very humbly and very respectfully, we have very gifted, talented, educated individuals in the city of Plainfield. But we all have our lanes. But one thing key that has been missing, and that is from the bottom up, that's going to be inclusive of all of Plainfield. To assure that. And you tell a tree by the fruit it bears. And thus far, we have picked from these same selections, from these same pools, with these same ingredients, that has given us these results. We need something very different for Plainfield's new beginning. Vote column C, Mustapha Muhammad for mayor.
Mr. Mapp.
My vision for Plainfield is one of community harmony, economic vitality, cultural vibrancy, and the social and economic well-being of every resident who lives in this city, with a right to live in a community that is safe and secure. I intend to bring jobs to this city by bringing economic development opportunities into this community that will provide property tax relief to our homeowners. I intend to provide more resources to our public safety department so that we could do a more effective and efficient job of providing safety and security to the people who live here. I intend to work cooperatively with the members on the governing body so that we could work together to move this city forward. I intend to work with the community. I intend to unite this city like it has never been before for one Plainfield. And I am asking every person who lives in this city, when you go into the voting booth on Tuesday, November 5th, to vote for all of the Democratic candidates in column A, because they're the most qualified. They have a track record, and speaking for myself, I am the one candidate of the four with the most experience, with the background and the qualifications to get the job done. And I am asking you, the citizens, the registered voters of Plainfield, for your support so that I can begin to make the transformational change that we need in the city of Plainfield. And so, on Tuesday, when you go into the booth, vote for the most qualified person to move this city forward, Adrian Mapp, and the other candidates in column A. One Plainfield.
Okay. Ms. Spector.
I hope that when you go to vote on Tuesday, that you decide that it's time for new eyes, for new ideas, for a new direction for this city. It's a time to end the machine politics that we've been living with for over 20 years. It's time to bring our focus back to our own city, back to our own residents, back to governing ourselves. It's time to make our government in this city transparent. It's time to open the windows. It's time to throw back the curtains. It's time to let the light in. It's time for this city to respect all of its residents, to want to hear them, to want to foster them. It's not a matter of just tolerating them. It's a matter of wanting them to be involved. No more closed-door deals. No more backroom deals. Everything open, honest, respectful. We desperately need to take the burden off of the backs of our individual homeowners. We need to increase our ratables. We need safe, brightly lit streets. We need to be able to take care of not only our youth, but our senior citizens as well. They are absolutely as important as our youth. We need to have a master plan for downtown. We do have a plan, but I think it's adequate. I think we need to rethink. I think we need to redo. I think we need to bring Plainfield again into the daylight. And it's finally time to take Plainfield out of the Union County machine. And this time, when you vote, put politics out and Plainfield ahead.
Thank you.
Well, I first want to thank you all for having us, because I've been advocating these types of forums throughout the whole campaign. I have asked for us to take a look at all the candidates, compare and contrast. And tonight we have had a wonderful opportunity to do that. And as you can see, I'm the only candidate that has come forth giving you clear, concise answers. I have laid out plans, even though they've been high level, of what I would do as the mayor. I've spoken about economic situations where we're looking at brownfields and what type of businesses that we could place in there. I have talked about how we will incorporate our youth and recreational programs. I've also talked about how we need to do better as far as public safety and policing. We need to show that Plainfield is ready to do business, that we are a city of laws and rules, and that the perception of Plainfield is ready to change by electing an independent mayor who is going to put Plainfield first. We could have had a really short forum tonight if we had just let me speak, and then the rest of the candidates just said ditto what Mr. Belin has said, because that is what we've been hearing all night. Okay? Now, I'm not here to say what we are doing today in Plainfield is a negative, but if you walk around the city or drive around the city of Plainfield and you look at the state that we are in, you will say we can do a better job. So when someone sits here and says, I have the most experience and that I've been on the council the longest, then you have to say, well, what have you been doing if the city is in such a state as that we are here trying to look for change? I.D. Scott Belin is the best. I am the best choice for mayor. I have 30 years of business experience. I have built diverse teams. I have worked in technology, public relations, management, and as the director or the head of the zoning board. So line D, you want to go to column D, line 9 on November 5th.
Thank you. Woo! So BKS1Radio.com. We thank you, listeners, for tuning in with us over the last 2 hours and a half, and had an opportunity. And I want to thank mayoral candidate Sandy Spector, Adrian Mapp, D. Scott Belin. Let's make sure I get it right. Mustapha Muhammad. He's so gracious to us. And we just want to thank you so much for being with BKS1Radio.com and giving us a peek and a real opportunity to dialogue and to hear from you. And we are so appreciative, and we give you another round of applause.
Definitely.
Bravo.